Hi there, welcome back. So I'm now living in this upstairs apartment in the bedroom. There is something I wanted to mention. While moving out, because of my OCD condition, I couldn't keep track of my things. I kind of, rather than focus on keeping a mental inventory of where I had put items, I couldn't focus on that for fear that it might set my OCD off. So I kind of just had to blindly pile things and throw them in the storage unit. And my taxes ended up getting in that mess. This whole thing unfolded, the OCD event unfolded right as I was planning on doing my taxes. And so my taxes were out. They were out of their accordion folder that I always, for years, had kept them in. And I don't know where they are to this day. It doesn't really matter. But all my items were, I don't know what's in that storage unit. I piled it in neatly, but in terms of a mental inventory, I have no idea what I have in that unit. There's important stuff, though. As I'm there living in that upstairs unit, a man started becoming present within a few days, I think. He was someone who my neighbor, my roommate, had met him because there was a guy who was downstairs in the foyer, really blinding, like just really, really drunk, trying to get into what was my old apartment, the front door of my old apartment. And my roommate asked him some questions. Who are you? What are you doing? And the guy was very confrontational. He was, turns out this guy was a very heavy drinker, and he was a mean drunk. And this was my roommate's first interaction with him. My first interaction was on the stoop of my apartment, and he was very drunk, and he was very... I ended up sort of befriending him a bit. I got past that gruff, was curious what he was doing. I had some questions, and I figured if we're going to be occupying the same space. Anyways, this guy wound up living in my old apartment, and he had been hired by Dave to do some work there. So this guy became a fixture here. It was very unpleasant, though I did get onto somewhat good terms with him. During the renovation process, there were a lot of toxic vapors that were seeping up. Now, this apartment building was, it was not any smells, and it was very porous. And anything from the first floor would rise up to the second floor, and vice versa. There was an exchange of airflow there, and I remember when this first became an issue. A crew had come over to refinish the wood floors. That is about 1,000 square feet of flooring, hardwood flooring, and they worked until late at night, and would find out this was a request of Dave to do the whole thing up until late at night. And they left. I told them to open the windows. It was such an overwhelming smell. We were trapped. My roommate and I were trapped in the upstairs apartment with all of these vapors. They had sealed up the downstairs with these newly finished floors, and we couldn't even open up our windows because they had been priming the outside of the building, the exterior paint, with oil-based paint, which was very toxic. So that oil-based paint would come in if we opened the windows, and there was no escape. It was such an overbearing. It made us sick. We felt ill. And this would continue. I notified Dave of this, and he said, "Oh, sorry about that," but it just continued. The second time the guys came in to do the second coat, Dave was there, and I said, ventilate this place, put a fan out. He didn't do it. He didn't do any of it. Now, what you need to do is, if you're not going to put your tenants up what he should have done was put us up. This is what I would do. If my tenants were, when I was either a property manager, because I did that for many years, or if I were an apartment owner, I would have put my tenants up while this process went on. It was very disruptive, and the toxic vapors were far too overwhelming. But a possible option is to put a commercial grade high volume fan in at least one window, shut the other windows, and create negative airflow, so that there would be no airflow from the first floor apartment to the second floor. The only airflow would be from the second floor to the first floor, making certain that the only exchange of air would be from the second floor to the first floor, so that none of those toxic vapors would get up to us. He refused to do that time after time. This became just a common thing, and I'd get on them a handful of times because of this. After the floors were finished, he was using other toxic chemicals. I don't know what exactly, but they were making their way upstairs, and it was a problem. It was a real problem. Every single time he refused to use a fan, except for the last time. I think he was there, and I said, please put a fan in the window so that to create negative airflow. He should know this too. This is he's a carpenter. He's in the trades. He should understand this concept. I got home, and he had one of those little cheap box fans that moves nearly no air anyway, and he had put this box fan on like the floor, so only a few inches of the top of the box fan was above the sill of the window, and then he had the window open about 2 inches, so the fan was blowing only a small percentage of the already inadequate volume of air that it produced at the window. And the window itself was open only about 2 inches. I took a photograph of this. I was disgusted by it. It was entirely ineffective. That fan, even having been inserted into that window properly, would not have been adequate. You needed an industrial strength fan creating suction, a negative airflow, to provide the adequate amount of vacuum. I came home and I saw that. I took a photo of it. I went upstairs and found an eviction notice. He had either left in the mailbox or on our door an eviction notice. And that eviction notice stated, it gave 3 options. The first 2 options were to vacate the premises early. The third option was to vacate at the end of the month, like normal. This was at the end of October, meaning that he couldn't evict us legally, I suppose, until the next month, meaning December. So the last option was an eviction of December 1st. He wanted us out. Those other 2 options were to be vacated within 5 days. Now, I received this notice in the evening, so the first day was no longer a day that I could use. And the last day we needed to be out. So that gave us effectively 3 days to be out. It wasn't a possibility because my credit had been ruined by I'd been sent to collections by my internet service provider. I'd gone on a payment plan with them, but they still sent me to collections over a ridiculously small amount. But at the time, it was too much for me, so a payment plan was something that was helpful. And anyway, the second option was we'd be out in like 2 weeks or something. Now, these two options presented the benefit of being reimbursed part of the rent that we had paid for the month. I would later find that he was using this. I stated this in my initial abridged version video, that he was using this as a tactic to, I think, create strife, pit my roommates against me. Not unlike a school teacher who, a bad school teacher, who would get the classroom against one particular student because that student was not falling in line or something like this. You all will be punished because of this student's actions. That is a lot like this tactic. That's sort of it's kind of like the way this tactic worked. My roommates, luckily, were not susceptible to his manipulation, and they didn't give me any. They just moved out. They moved out. They were able to move out early. They would have, had it not been for me and my inability to move out early, they would have received, as long as Dave kept his word about the note, they would have received their reduced rent. But I didn't leave early. I simply couldn't. Also, during that time, I was working, and Dave was there a lot. And I would get home from work around 4:15 or so. And Dave would be hanging around there. And I was so angry with him because I knew that this was it. I was at the end. The only way for me to survive would be to piece my life together, get better, and continue working and stay, make sure my debts didn't get out of control. I was at this point when I got back to the apartment from my parents' house. I was in perfect standing with all of my debtors. I didn't have many. I had student loan and I had a small credit card payment. A very small credit card payment. I had managed through this entire illness to stay in good standing. And being kicked out was going to make it impossible for me to do any of this because everything was so... I had structured my life in such a way that I was very close to work. My expenses were as I had as few expenses as possible. And being displaced would throw everything out of balance. And I wouldn't have any place to put my things. I had nowhere to go. It meant death. It really, truly did. And to some people, they just... there are probably going to be plenty of people out there that say, "Oh, there's always an option." There wasn't. This was it. I had been knocked down so many. This was it. I was hanging off the edge of a cliff, and I was gripping by my fingernails, and he was pushing me off. So anyway, I would wait. I would drive home, see Dave there milling around outside, and I'd leave because I didn't want to see this guy. I thought, because he was always trying to get under my skin. He was always trying to pour salt on the wound because he knew he hurt me. And I didn't want to interact with him. I was afraid what I would do. I was afraid because this man effectively had killed me. I was a dead man walking. And I did not want to see him. And he would hang out. And I would sometimes wait 2 extra hours before actually going home. But I had to go home. And he would always be there. Maybe not always, but very often he would wait until I got there. And he'd have something to say to me. Something inflammatory. And the one in particular, the worst instance in particular was I finally couldn't wait any longer, parked my truck, I walked up, and he was waiting for me on the stoop. Just to say that, because he after this interaction, he left. And he would always leave right after I got home. It's like he wanted to see me arrive home. And then he was like, I'll call it a day now. This is the way I interpreted it. But, tried to avoid him, get inside. He caught me. And he told me, these were his exact words. There was more dialogue before and after this, but in the midst of this dialogue, these were his exact words. You're really screwing your roommates over by not moving out early. And I wanted to tear him apart. I saw this man as not the source of all of my issues, but I could have overcome all of these things. I could have been in a really bad position, but at least I would have had a home, and I would have salvaged, to the bare minimum, my life, and been able to mend. I knew I could do it. I knew I could get better. But this guy had quite literally, it's sort of like, I had all of these assailants from multiple angles attacking me, and he was one of them. I liken it to a mob of people beating you to nearly death, and then the last one given a final kick in the head, a death blow, and being able to say, I didn't really do much. I kicked him a couple times, but this guy killed me. And I just wanted to get upstairs and away from him so badly, because I was afraid that I would be out of willpower. I thought I would attack this guy. I didn't. I let him dig the knife in, and I went upstairs. But till the very end, he was he wouldn't let me forget the position that he put me in. Okay, nearly there. Just got a few things to tie up in the next video, and probably have 2, maybe 3 videos left. I probably shouldn't forecast it like that. I've always been wrong, but very, very close. Anyway, I'll stop speaking. I'm sorry. I don't think I've done very well these past few videos. I've done them all in a row. I'm really trying to get them knocked out, because I've got to get them done. Thank you very much for being here and listening to me. If you have made it this far, hopefully I'll see you in the next video.